Number 1. The Odd Fellows Home. In Liberty, Missouri, the Odd Fellows Home opened in 1900 with a hopeful purpose. The Independent Order of Odd Fellows built it on a large farm as a safe place for elderly members, widows, and orphan children. It had schoolrooms, dormitories, gardens, and workspaces, almost like a small town, made to care for people who had nowhere else to turn. During the hard years of the Great Depression, more families looked to the home for help, and the halls filled with young voices. Children studied, played, and learned trades, while older residents watched the seasons change across the fields. For many, this was not just charity. Today, the restored property is known as Belvoir Winery, and the old orphanage building welcomes guests instead of children. Yet people still tell gentle stories from after dark. They hear light footsteps racing down empty halls, faint laughter near the stairways, and doors that seem to settle only after someone unseen has passed. Some say the children simply loved the place too much to leave. Others speak of an older gentleman near the hospital building, watching with a calm, grandfatherly presence. When the sun drops behind the former home, Belvoir feels less abandoned than remembered, as if the past is still keeping everyone safe at night. Number 2. Epperson House. On Cherry Street in Kansas City, Epperson House rises like a storybook mansion from another age. Built between 1919 and 1923 for banker and philanthropist Uriah S. Epperson, the Tudor Gothic home had 54 rooms, elevators, a swimming pool, and a grand music room. It was made to impress, but music became its deepest memory inside. The heart of the legend belongs to Harriet Evelyn Barse, a gifted organ student at the Kansas City Conservatory of Music. The Eppersons treated her almost like an adopted daughter, and she helped plan the custom organ for the house. But Harriet died in 1922 before the instrument was fully finished, leaving one song forever waiting in silence. After the mansion became part of what is now UMKC, students and guards began sharing quiet stories. Some heard organ notes floating through locked rooms. Others saw the woman in a formal gown near the music space, as if preparing for a recital no living audience could attend. Lights also turned off by themselves in empty hallways after midnight. Its ghost story sounds like unfinished art. The old stone walls hold money, ambition, and campus history, but they also hold one musician's dream. On still nights, when the building sits dark, people imagine Harriet returning to the organ loft, not to frighten anyone, but to finish her final melody at last. Number 3. Lemp Mansion. In St. Louis, the Lemp Mansion stands with the quiet weight of a family empire. Built in the late 1860s, it became home to the Lemps, whose brewery helped make the city famous for beer. Their caves, rail lines, and expanding business turned a local name into a national one. And the mansion showed the wealth that came with that success and pride. But the old house also carried sadness. Over the years, the Lemp family faced business losses illness, and private grief, especially after Prohibition changed the brewing world. Rooms that once held dinners and music slowly gathered a heavier feeling. By the time the mansion became an inn and restaurant, guests already believed the past had not fully left the rooms. The gentlest legend is the Lavender Lady. Visitors say she moves through the rooms quietly, not as a frightening figure, but as a soft presence marked by the sweet smell of lavender. Some report cool air near the staircases, footsteps above them, or the feeling that someone has paused in a doorway just long enough to be noticed. What makes a Lemp mansion haunting is not one shadow, but the contrast between beauty and loss. Fine woodwork, old portraits, and candlelit dining rooms all seem to hold pieces of a vanished life. When lavender drifts through the air with no clear source, it feels like the house is speaking in the only way it can, softly, politely, and from another century still. Number 4. Pythian Castle. Pythian Castle in Springfield, Missouri, began with a mission of care. Built in 1913 by the Knights of Pythias, the heavy stone building served as a home for orphans, widows, and aging members of the order. With towers, thick walls, and long corridors, it looked like a fortress. Later, the U.S. military took over the property, and the castle entered a very different chapter. During the World War II era, it was used for military needs, including rehabilitation and housing tied to soldiers and prisoners of war. The same rooms that once heard children now heard marching feet, dances, orders, and the daily sounds of wartime America at night. Modern visitors come for history tours, events, and ghost stories, and many describe the haunting as strangely gentle. Some hear children laughing near the old play spaces. Others notice a soldierly presence near the theater, as if someone in uniform is still standing watch. The building seems to remember every group it once protected for years. That is the secret of Pythian Castle in Missouri. It does not feel empty because it was never built for emptiness. It was built to hold people through difficult years. At night, when the stone grows cold and the halls become quiet, the past seems to move in layers. Children, soldiers, music, footsteps, all still sharing the castle like a guarded home in the dark. Number 5. The Elms Hotel and Spa. The Elms Hotel in Excelsior Springs has always been tied to escape. Guests came for mineral waters, fresh air, and the promise of rest in a resort town. After earlier fires, the Grand Hotel was rebuilt in 1912, rising again with wide porches, elegant rooms, old lobbies, and a reputation that drew travelers who wanted comfort away from ordinary life for a while. Its walls later heard some famous footsteps. President Harry S. Truman stayed there in 1948 during the tense election season, choosing the hotel for quiet and privacy. During the Prohibition years, stories also placed well-known underworld figures near the basement pool and hidden social spaces, giving the Elms a mix of glamour, rumor, and mystery. The ghost stories match the hotel's softer side. Guests speak of a helpful spirit near the pool room, especially when keys or small items go missing and then turn up in odd places. Others tell of a little lapdog seen or felt around the grounds, playful and quick, like a memory from a guest who never checked out completely, even now. It haunts like a hotel that never stopped receiving visitors. Steam, old tile, quiet halls, and late-night whispers all blend into its legend. Number 6. Missouri State Penitentiary. In Jefferson City, the Missouri State Penitentiary opened in 1836, the same year the Alamo fell in Texas. Its stone walls rose beside the Missouri River and quickly became one of the most important prisons in the West. For generations, people in town called it the Walls, because once those gates closed, life seemed to vanish behind them. The prison stayed open for 168 years, until 2004, making it the oldest continually operating prison west of the Mississippi. It held famous inmates, ordinary prisoners, guards, cooks, and workers, all moving through cell blocks that changed with each century. The place became part of Missouri history, but not a comfortable part at all for many. Today, visitors walk through the empty corridors on history tours and evening ghost walks. The stories are softer than the building looks. Some hear keys jingling down a hall where no guard is standing. Others describe a calm shadow called John, like an old caretaker still making his rounds and checking that the property is safe. What makes the penitentiary linger in memory is the sound of routine after routine has ended. A door clangs, a chain seems to shift, and the long rows of cells feel awake again. Maybe it is only old metal and river wind, but in those dark corridors, Missouri's past does not feel locked away. It feels like it is still walking, one careful step at a time, past every door, under the old watch now. Number 7. Beatty Mansion. In St. Joseph, the Beatty Mansion began as a proud family home in 1854. Armstrong and Eliza Beatty built it on what was then a busy city street. Armstrong became a banker, civic leader, and mayor, and the house welcomed many visitors during the busy years when St. Joseph was growing with river trade, wagon routes, and new ambition. The home did not stay only a private residence. After the Beatty years, it became connected with charitable care and later served elderly residents for many decades. That long second life matters, because the mansion was not just a showplace. It held quiet routines, meals, tired feet on stairs, soft conversations, and people who spent their final years under its roof. Modern visitors know the Beatty Mansion for its overnight stays and paranormal tours, but its stories are usually gentle. People report slow footsteps in empty rooms, soft voices from places no one is standing, and a sweet smell of fresh roses drifting through the parlor. It feels less like a warning and more like someone remembering company. Beatty Mansion has seen wealth, charity, sickness, age, and restoration, all inside the same walls. When the floorboards answer with a careful creak, it is easy to picture a former resident crossing the room with old-fashioned patience. In that moment, Beatty Mansion does not feel abandoned. It feels politely occupied. Number 8. Vale Mansion. In Independence, Missouri, the Vail Mansion was finished in 1881 for Harvey and Sophia Vail. Designed by Kansas City architect Asa Beebe Cross, the 31-room house had tall towers, bright brick, marble fireplaces, and a Second Empire style that looked almost unreal beside quieter homes. Newspapers praised it as one of the most comfortable and impressive houses in the West. Harvey Vail had made money through business, mail routes, and public life. But the mansion's beauty came with trouble. In the 1880s, he was drawn into the Star Route scandal and faced expensive trials, though he was found not guilty. Then Sophia died in the house, and the grand rooms began to feel marked by both success and sorrow. The local legend speaks of a woman in a green dress, sometimes seen near an upper window. She is not described as angry or frightening. She appears to be looking over the grounds, as if the roses, walks, and ironwork still belong to her. Visitors also mention cold spots and the strange feeling of being quietly observed. That is what makes Vail Mansion so memorable. It is not only a beautiful house, it is a reminder that wealth cannot protect a family from grief. When evening settles on the cupola and the windows turn dark, the woman in green becomes part of the home's story. She seems to keep watching from above, graceful, silent, and tied forever to the mansion she knew so very well now. Number 9. Thespian Hall. In Boonville, Missouri, Thespian Hall began in the 1850s, when a river town wanted more than trade and muddy streets. Built from 1855 to 1857 by the Thespian Society, the brick Greek Revival building held a theater, reading rooms, and civic spaces. On the frontier, it offered music, lectures, and a little elegance beside the Missouri River. The hall also carried heavier duties. During the Civil War, Boonville sat in a divided state, and Thespian Hall was used for military needs, including as a supply depot, barracks, and hospital. Later, it became known as the oldest theater still in use west of the Alleghenies, and it earned a place on the National Register in 1969. The resident spirit is often called Mrs. X by the people who love the theater. She is described as a gray-haired woman in a dark skirt and white-collared blouse, sometimes seated calmly near the back. No one says she ruins the show. She seems to watch like any loyal patron, waiting for the curtain to rise and the room to breathe. That is why Thespian Hall feels so alive. It has survived war, change in entertainment, movie years, restoration, and more than a century of community memory. When an empty seat creaks in the rear rows, the story feels almost kind. Maybe Mrs. X is not haunting the theater at all. Maybe she simply never stopped coming back for one more performance, under the old lights, on quiet Missouri nights. Number 10. John Warnell House. In Kansas City, the John Warnell House was built in 1858 when the area still felt close to the Missouri frontier. John B. Warnell raised the sturdy brick Greek Revival home on a large farm of hundreds of acres, long before the modern neighborhood grew around it. From the outside, it looked orderly, peaceful, and safe, with fields stretching beyond the doors. That peace broke during the Civil War. On October 23, 1864, The Battle of Westport raged nearby, one of the largest battles fought west of the Mississippi. The Warnall home was used as a field hospital, and both Confederate and Union wounded passed through its rooms. Furniture was moved, floors were crowded, and the family home became a place of survival. Because of that history, the folklore here is treated with respect. Visitors and reenactors have reported soldierly figures in the yard, as if men from both sides are still standing watch together. Others notice the scent of pipe tobacco in the study, a small old-fashioned sign that someone unseen has settled into the room. The Warnall house does not need wild stories to feel haunted. Its real past is heavy enough. A home built for family life became a shelter in battle, and the walls seem to remember that change. When the rooms fall quiet, the legend feels less like fear and more like a salute. Number 11. Alexander Major's house. In Kansas City, the Alexander Major's house was built in 1856, when the Missouri-Kansas line still felt like the edge of the nation. Majors ran a huge freighting business from this property, sending wagons, animals, and men across western trails. Before the Pony Express became a legend, this quiet house stood near the work that made it possible. Majors helped create the Pony Express in 1860, a daring mail route that moved messages by horse between Missouri and California. The service lasted only about 18 months, but it became one of America's great frontier symbols. Inside the home, family life and business plans once shared the same rooms, between ledgers, maps, and travel dust. The gentle spirit most often linked to the house is Louisa Johnston, Major's great-granddaughter. She spent years helping preserve the property, so the story says she still watches over it with careful pride. Visitors sometimes feel a calm presence during tours, as if someone is making sure every room is treated with respect. That is what gives the Alexander Major's house its vibe. It is not only a haunted place, it is a doorway into the speed, risk, and hope of the Western trails. When the rooms grow still, you can almost hear harness leather, wagon wheels, and a soft step behind you. Louisa may simply be keeping the family story from fading, with old maps spread near the old parlor as evening falls slowly. Number 12. The Lehman House. In St. Louis, the Lehman House began on Benton Place, one of the city's oldest private streets. Edward Rouse and his wife, Anne Eliza, built the mansion in 1892 and 1893, when Lafayette Square was filled with pride and fine Victorian homes. After Rouse died in 1895, the home passed into a new chapter. Frederick W. Lehman, a respected attorney, who later became United States Solicitor General, bought the house with his family in 1898. In its rooms, guests, lawyers, and public leaders moved beneath tall ceilings and carved wood, while the city changed outside on quiet brick streets. The folklore says Edward Rouse never fully left the place he dreamed into being. Guests have spoken of soft footsteps, quiet voices, and the feeling of someone checking the halls. Some stories say he watches the restored woodwork with ownerly care, as if every polished rail and door frame still matters to him after so many years. Today, the Lehman House is a bed and breakfast, restored after years when the neighborhood and mansion both suffered neglect. That makes its haunting feel like a return, not a warning. When the old rooms settle at night, the house seems to breathe through its boards. It is as if St. Louis itself is whispering that beautiful places remember who loved them first and who struggled to save them later. Number 13. Union Station. Kansas City Union Station opened in 1914, built to replace the old depot in the West Bottoms after the city outgrew it. Its Beaux-Arts halls were huge, bright and busy, made for a railroad town that wanted to look important. Under the high ceilings, families said goodbye, soldiers shipped out, and travelers hurried toward platforms with bags in hand. During its busiest years, the station handled crowds that made it feel like a small city indoors. In World War I, train traffic rose sharply, and later generations passed through during World War II and the years after. Every ticket window, bench, and staircase collected voices from people leaving home or finally coming back with letters, uniforms, and hope. That is where the folklore begins. Employees and visitors have told stories of a woman in a black dress walking down the stairs at night. Others speak of old-fashioned travelers carrying suitcases near the platforms, moving with purpose, as if they are still trying to catch a train that has not arrived for decades. Union Station is not frightening because it is dark. It is haunting because it once held so many endings and beginnings in one place. When the great hall empties and footsteps echo under the ceiling, the building remembers every last wave from the platform. Number 14. Glore Psychiatric Museum. In St. Joseph, the Glore Psychiatric Museum stands beside a difficult part of Missouri history. State Lunatic Asylum No. 2 opened in 1874 when mental health care was often misunderstood. The first buildings were meant to be self-sufficient, with farmland, work routines, and long halls where patients lived far from ordinary town life. The hospital later became St. Joseph State Hospital, and over time it grew into a large institution. Some treatments from the past now feel strange or sad, but the museum does not present them to shock people. It asks visitors to look at how medicine, kindness, fear, and science changed across more than a century of care in America. George Glore, who worked for the Missouri Department of Mental Health, helped begin the museum collection in the 1960s. Today it holds medical tools, staff items, patient artwork, and stories that show real human lives. Folklore says gentle caretakers still move through the corridors, quietly checking the exhibits after the doors close. Every object has a person behind it, and every hallway carries the weight of someone trying to be understood. When the museum grows quiet, a soft step or shifting shadow can feel like an old nurse making rounds, keeping watch over memories that deserve patience. Number 15. Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception. In Kansas City, the Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception stands under its famous gold dome, but its story reaches back to the city's frontier days. A small log church was built near 11th and Broadway in 1835, when only a few Catholic families lived nearby. Later churches rose on the same sacred ground as the city grew around them, block by block. The present cathedral was built in the early 1880s and dedicated in 1883, after the Diocese of Kansas City was created. Its tower once looked over a much smaller skyline, and its bells, stained glass, and sanctuary became part of downtown life. In 1960, the dome was finished in gold leaf, turning it into one of the city's most familiar landmarks. The gentle legend belongs to the choir loft. When the cathedral is quiet, people say a past choir director can sometimes be heard humming older hymns above the empty pews. The sound is not loud or frightening. It rises softly, like someone warming up a voice before Sunday Mass, then fades into the stone and silence. That is why the cathedral's haunting feels peaceful. Churches are built to hold prayers, weddings, funerals, and voices lifted together, so a song lingering there makes a strange kind of sense. Number 16. St. Mary's Episcopal Church. In downtown Kansas City, St. Mary's Episcopal Church began in 1857, when the city was still so young and crowded with river traffic, muddy streets, and new brick buildings. It was first known as St. Luke's, then became St. Mary's in the 1870s. By 1887, its Gothic Revival church stood at 13th, and homes like a stone refuge in the growing city. For decades, the parish served more than Sunday worship. Its members supported schools, charity work, and early hospital efforts in Kansas City, making the church part of daily life as well as faith. One important rector, Father Henry David Jardine, served from 1879 to 1886 and left behind a story that people still talk about carefully. The legend says a priestly presence sometimes moves through the church after dark. Some describe a quiet figure in old clerical clothing, checking the sanctuary as if making sure the candles are out and the altar is safe. Others say the building simply feels watched over, especially when the pews are empty and the street noise fades. That is what makes St. Mary's so memorable. Its haunting is wrapped in bells, stained glass, and the long memory of a congregation that survived hard years downtown. When a candle flickers in the quiet, it feels less like fear than duty. Number 17. Jefferson Barracks. South of St. Louis, Jefferson Barracks began in 1826 when the Army chose a high place near the Mississippi River for a new post. It was named for Thomas Jefferson, who died that same year, and it became a training ground for soldiers moving into a growing nation. For a long time, uniforms and bugle calls shaped the landscape. The post served through many conflicts and generations, from frontier duty to the World Wars, before its active military role ended in 1946. Brick buildings, parade grounds, cemeteries, and museums now help tell that history. The Old Powder magazine is especially powerful because it reminds visitors how carefully soldiers handled danger in ordinary routine. The folklore is quiet and respectful. People exploring the historic grounds sometimes speak of sentries in old-fashioned uniforms, standing at attention near the magazine or along the paths. They do not rush forward. They simply appear, watchful and still, like men who remember their orders even after the last formation has marched away. Jefferson Barracks' past is written in discipline, service, and the sound of boots on packed earth. When evening lowers over the river and the old buildings darken, the sentries seem almost believable. Maybe they are shadows, maybe they are memory. Number 18, Bellefontaine Cemetery. Bellefontaine Cemetery in St. Louis began in 1849 and was dedicated the next year following the rural cemetery movement that treated burial grounds like peaceful gardens. Its winding roads, old trees, and careful landscaping gave the city a quiet place to remember the dead. Over time, it became one of Missouri's great outdoor history books. Important names rest there, including explorer William Clark, brewers, writers, soldiers, civic leaders, and families whose stories shaped St. Louis. The cemetery is also an arboretum, so every season changes its mood. Spring brings blossoms, summer deep shade, autumn gold leaves, and winter a silence that makes the monuments feel older than stone. The folklore is gentle, like the grounds themselves. On cool mornings, visitors sometimes speak of mist-like figures moving between mausoleums and old markers. They do not chase or call out. They seem to walk slowly, as if still taking the same paths they knew in life, pausing near family plots before fading into fog and trees. That is why Bellefontaine feels less like a place of endings and more like a city of memory. The dead are not hidden away here. They are named, carved, and surrounded by beauty. When the air turns crisp and the paths grow quiet, every statue seems to listen. The figures in the mist may be only weather, but they make the cemetery feel peacefully awake under the old St. Louis trees at dawn. Number 19, J. Houston Tavern. In Arrow Rock, the J. Houston Tavern opened in 1834, when Missouri still felt close to the western edge of American settlement. Judge Joseph Houston built it for travelers, traders, and families passing near the Santa Fe Trail. Its brick walls offered food, rest, news, and warmth in a town that depended on the road, river, stagecoaches, and the steady news of people moving west. For more than 180 years, the tavern kept serving the public, making it one of the oldest continuously operating restaurants west of the Mississippi River. It survived changes in travel, war, fires, ownership, and fashion. Yet its purpose stayed simple: put a meal on the table and give strangers a reason to feel welcome after a long ride. The legend matches that feeling. People tell of a pioneer woman in a long dress who appears near the fireplace, gently rocking in a chair as if watching over the room. She does not seem angry. She seems patient, almost host-like, the sort of presence that belongs beside warm light, old floors, and the smell of supper. So many travelers have crossed that threshold with hunger, hope, and stories from the road. When the dining room grows quiet and the chairs settle after closing, the past seems to take one more seat by the fire. In Arrow Rock, hospitality may be the ghost that never left, smiling in lamplight every night. Number 20, Senior Hall at Stevens College. Senior Hall at Stevens College in Columbia dates back to 1841, making it the oldest building on campus. Long before modern dorms and classrooms surrounded it, the structure stood on land connected to early female education in Missouri. In 1857, the Columbia Baptist Female College acquired the building, and Stevens grew from that beginning. For many years, Senior Hall was the center of student life. It served as a dormitory until 1918, holding generations of young women who studied, wrote letters, practiced music, and watched a changing country from the same windows. During the Civil War, Columbia sat in a divided state, and campus stories later tied the hall to wartime fear. The best-known legend tells of Sarah June Wheeler, a student said to have helped hide a wounded young soldier. In the gentler telling, she cared for him quietly, and their story became part of the hall's memory. People later reported soft piano music from empty rooms, small sounds in the halls, and the sense of a young woman still searching. Senior Hall at Stevens College is haunting because it feels personal, not grand. It carries school days, war rumors, friendships, and one old love story whispered from class to class. When the building grows still, a piano note seems easy to imagine. Maybe Sarah is only legend, but the hall keeps her close, like a name written in a desk that no one has ever had the heart to erase in old Missouri light. Number 21. Williams Hall at Columbia College. Williams Hall at Columbia College sits inside a campus with one of Missouri's oldest education stories. The school began in 1851 as Christian Female College, chartered when higher education for women was still rare west of the Mississippi. Young students studied, prayed, wrote lessons, and lived by strict rules in a town divided by the coming Civil War. From that tense era comes the Gray Lady. In the legend, she was a young woman waiting for the man she loved, a soldier pulled into war. Some versions say she promised to wear gray until he came home, and she could finally wear white. But the war did not return everyone, and grief slowly became part of the college's memory. The stories around Williams Hall are not cruel ones. Students have spoken of a gray shape moving through halls, candles shifting near windows, and small helpful acts when rooms felt too hot or chores were left undone. She is said to open windows, smooth clothing, or pass quietly by, more lonely than frightening. She belongs to the old world of letters, dorm rooms, and wartime waiting, when one message could change a life. If the hall creaks after sunset, it can feel like someone is still keeping a promise. Number 22. Kendrick House. Kendrick House in Carthage began in 1849, before the town had the shape it has today. The brick home was started by Senator Rankin and later became the property of William and Elizabeth Kendrick in the 1850s. Built on high ground north of downtown, it survived when so much of Jasper County's early world was later burned, broken, or rebuilt. Its hardest chapter came during the Civil War. On July 5, 1861, the Battle of Carthage rolled across the area, one of Missouri's early clashes. The house was used by soldiers as a field hospital and headquarters, and over time both Union and Confederate forces passed through its rooms. The parlor became part of the war's uneasy memory. Today, the Kendrick House is valued as a rare survivor from before the war, but its legend feels more human than terrifying. Visitors have reported quiet voices in the parlor, as if soldiers and settlers are speaking low about roads, farms, and the town they knew. The sounds seem to rise, then fade before anyone can answer back. It is not only brick and history, it is a witness. It saw families settle, armies arrive, and a town struggle to stand again. When evening settles over the rooms, the voices feel less like a haunting than a conversation still unfinished, carried softly through the house that managed to survive long after the last wagon passed from sight. Number 23, Ravenswood Mansion. Ravenswood Mansion near Bunston rose in 1880, deep in the rolling country south of Boonville. Charles Leonard built the brick estate after marrying Nadine Nelson, daughter of banker James M. Nelson. The house mixed Italianate and Second Empire beauty with tall rooms, a mansard roof, and wide views over a farm that once felt almost like its own world. The Leonard family had deep roots in Cooper County, tied to land, livestock, and the kind of rural wealth that shaped Missouri after the frontier years. Ravenswood stayed in the same family for generations, filled with furniture, portraits, clothing, and travel pieces that turned it into a time capsule. In 1975, the property was listed on the National Register of Historic Places. The gentlest legend belongs to Nadine Leonard. Visitors say her presence can be felt near the staircase, elegant and calm, as if the former lady of the house is still greeting guests. Some imagine the faint sound of a dress on the steps, or a quiet pause in the air when someone enters the hall. So much of the family's world remained under one roof that the past never had to leave all at once. When dusk settles on the old estate, Nadine's story gives the mansion a warm, watchful heart, like a hostess still welcoming strangers into the home she knew and loved as old house clocks tick in the dark. Number 24, Grand Avenue Bed and Breakfast. Grand Avenue Bed and Breakfast in Carthage belongs to a town that rebuilt itself with pride after the Civil War. By the early 1900s, Carthage had broad streets, grand homes, and stone buildings that showed the wealth of Jasper County's mining years. Later, Route 66 brought travelers past the courthouse and old neighborhoods. Unlike a ruined mansion, this place became known for warmth. Guests came for old wood, breakfast rooms, and the feeling of staying inside a quieter century. The home's peaceful rooms made the past feel close without feeling heavy. That is why the legend of Albert Carmian, a former owner, seems to fit the home so well. His story does not arrive with crashing doors, but with a habit people can almost picture. The sign of Albert is said to be cherry blend pipe tobacco. Guests and owners have noticed the scent drifting through the dining room or parlor, even when no one nearby is smoking. It comes and goes softly, like someone has settled into a favorite chair after supper, content to watch the house carry on. That small detail is what makes the haunting memorable. A smell can bring back a person faster than a portrait can. And in this home, tobacco becomes a calling card from another time. Number 25. Prosperity School, Bed and Breakfast. Prosperity School near Webb City stands where a mining town once believed its name. Prosperity began in the late 1880s as lead and zinc mines drew workers into Jasper County. By the early 1900s, families needed a solid school, and in 1907, a brick building rose for children whose parents worked in one of Missouri's busiest mining regions. For decades, the school heard recitations, bells, chalk on boards, and shoes crossing wooden floors. Prosperity changed as the mines slowed, and the old district finally closed in 1962 during school consolidation. The building later sat quiet, then found new life as a bed and breakfast, giving travelers a place to sleep inside a former classroom. That is where the legend became part of the stay. Guests and investigators have spoken of children running in halls, faint laughter, shadowy movement, and the feeling of a classroom suddenly waking up after dark. The stories are usually playful, as if the building is replaying its happiest years instead of its loneliest ones. Prosperity School near Webb City feels haunted by echoes more than fear. It was built for lessons in young voices, in a town that rose, worked hard, and faded when the ore no longer promised the same future. At night, when the halls go still, the laughter seems to remind visitors that a school can close on paper, yet still keep every child's footstep tucked inside its walls long after the last school bell rang. Number 26. Avila Historic Village. Avila, Missouri, sits along Old Route 66 in Jasper County, small enough to pass before you understand what you saw. The village was founded in 1856 and laid out in 1858, when farms, creeks, and wagon roads shaped life in southwest Missouri. Later, the Mother Road brought travelers through town, but interstate traffic pulled much of that life away. The Civil War left a hard mark on the area. Nearby Carthage saw one of the war's early battles in 1861, and border fighting made places like Avila nervous and divided. Local stories remember militias, raiders, and families trying to survive between loyalties. That real history gives the village's ghost tales a deeper shadow under the quiet porches and trees. Avila is best known for the shadow folk, dark figures said to move at the edge of sight along the old street. Some are seen near the post office, once a bank, or slipping past empty buildings. They rarely come close. They appear, turn, and fade, like pioneers still walking the road without wishing to be stopped. The story stays low and careful. That is why Avila, Missouri feels like a living ghost town. It was never fully abandoned, yet the quiet spaces speak loudly. A passing car, a dark window, and a shape near the corner can turn history into a whisper. On Old Route 66, Avila seems to keep two populations, the people who stayed and the ones Missouri dusk still lets you almost see after sunset too. Number 27. The Governor's Mansion. The Missouri Governor's Mansion in Jefferson City was completed in late 1871, high above the Missouri River. Since 1872, it has served as the official residence of the state's governors, making it one of the oldest governor's homes still used in the United States. Its red brick walls and mansard roof were built to show dignity, not fear. The mansion was raised quickly, in only months, with much work done by prisoners from the nearby state penitentiary. Over the years, governors, first ladies, staff, guests, and school children moved through its formal rooms. Laws changed, families changed, and Missouri changed, but the house kept its place beside the Capitol and above the river. The gentlest legend belongs to Carrie Crittenden, daughter of Governor Thomas Crittenden. She died there at age 9 during a diphtheria outbreak in the early 1880s. Stories say her young spirit sometimes wandered the upper floors, leaving the scent of roses or the feeling that a child had just passed through the room softly. It holds public power, but also private sorrow. A soft noise upstairs can make visitors think of Carrie, not as a scare, but as a child still tied to the only home she knew in those final days. In that quiet, Missouri history feels tender, personal, and close enough to touch under the old stairway and the silent lights there. Number 28, Mizzou Memorial Union. Mizzou Memorial Union in Columbia was born from grief after World War I. Students and alumni first imagined a student union before the war, but after the fighting ended, the idea became a memorial. The central Gothic tower began in 1923 and was dedicated in 1926, standing in white limestone at the heart of campus for generations. The building was not finished all at once. The Depression and World War II slowed the work, and the wings came later, but the tower already carried its purpose. Names of fallen Mizzou students were carved into the stone, and campus tradition asks people to speak softly and remove hats when passing beneath the arch in respect. The legend is fittingly quiet. In the tower's old study spaces, people tell of a student-like spirit who moves through books after hours. Pages turn when no one is near. A volume may shift on a shelf. It feels less like mischief and more like someone still studying history, trying to understand the cost behind the names in the stone in silence. It is busy by day, full of meetings, meals, and student noise, but its center is a place of remembrance. At night, when the tower darkens and the chimes seem to hang in the air, Number 29, Haunted Castle House. In Brumley, Missouri, the Haunted Castle House stands near the Lake of the Ozarks, with a name that sounds bigger than the road around it. Local history places the home's beginnings around 1850, during a period when small Ozark communities depended on private houses for many public needs. A building could become home, office, shelter, and gathering place. Over time, the Castle House is said to have served as a residence, a doctor's office, and a place connected with care for the sick. Later owners also found traces of older burials on the property, which helped give the house its strange reputation. Even without the ghost stories, the building carries the heavy feeling of many lives passing through one doorway. The folklore is gentler than the name suggests. Visitors speak of early settler spirits walking the gardens, soft movements in rooms, and the sense of someone watching from a doorway. Some come for investigations, But the most memorable stories are simple: a shape near the flowers, a quiet step, a presence that seems curious rather than cruel. It is not only a spooky stop, it is a reminder of how one old home could serve a whole community. When night settles over Brumley and the garden paths fade into shadow, the spirits seem less like strangers than former neighbors, still admiring the place where their stories once met. Number 30. Phelps Grove Park. Phelps Grove Park in Springfield was acquired by the Park Board on April 22, 1914, when the land still sat south of the city limits. It took its name from Governor John S. Phelps and Mary Whitney Phelps, whose homestead once included the area. From the start, the park was meant to feel graceful, shaded, and welcoming to the growing city. Its Fieldstone Pavilion, bridges, and Dollison Avenue gates date back to the park's creation. In the 1930s, WPA and CCC workers lined Fast Night Creek with stone, adding the careful handwork still seen today. The park once had a man-made lake and even zoo animals, before they were moved to Dickerson Park Zoo in 1923. Another sign of its early charm. The legend centers on the ghost bride. In local stories, a young bride and her husband were driving through the park when a terrible crash ended their wedding day. Since then, people have claimed to see a woman in a white gown near the center bridge, sometimes holding up her dress as if keeping it out of the water. Phelps Grove, Missouri is still a family park by daylight. That makes the evening story feel even stranger.
If you enjoy this video, please click the like button.
And don't forget to subscribe to the channel.
See you in the next one.